and welcome to The Shakedown. I am your host, Ryan, aka Rainforest. I was in prison for 6 years and got a degree in sociology and studied criminology and things like that. And I am on the phone right now with my buddy Malone, who was locked up for 30 years. And he
7,000 years.
7,000 years. I'm sorry.
Yeah.
I don't know what animal lifespan we're going on for this one.
Oh, well, that's what it felt like.
That.
Somewhere along the way, I lost track.
So yes. So we both have experience dealing with prisons, and we both have a lot of experience with dealing with the criminal justice system. And we both want to change it. And we want to talk about our experience and talk about what can change to make it a better system for everybody. And recently we did an episode. We talked about weekenders and commitments, and we talked specifically about my commitment, which is part of my probation, where I have to go down to Texas once a year and go down and stay in jail for one 24-hour period once a year. And actually, just last weekend, I was back in Texas and trying to get rid of that one condition off my probation, trying to get that off of there. And
probation.
Yes, off my probation. And it's not part of my parole because I'm on parole and probation.
I think you need to let people know that today, this show is going to be a little bit different than the rest of them. And there's going to be kind of a role reversal here, and I'm going to be doing most of the interviewing, and Rainforest is going to be answering most of the questions.
Yes.
So we're in for a treat.
We are, and with that, I'm going to let Malone take the lead and ask the questions, and I am, as you can see, in the hot seat. And Malone today is a disembodied voice because we just want to get this episode. We, meaning mainly me, wanted to get this episode in the can, so that we can get this out and get this out to people. So, with that, Malone, what do you...
Yeah,
Yes.
Indeed. All right, well, you kind of told everybody the basics of your situation. And so, when you went to court, so how did you get back into court on this to begin with anyways? And how does that go about? Did you have to hire a lawyer?
I did. So for months, I spent time looking for a lawyer that would take this case. I did not want to use the lawyer that I had previously because I felt pretty screwed over by the lawyer that I had before. And I discussed that in our first episode, why I felt that way. So if you want to go back and listen to it, I explain why I felt like my lawyer didn't do an amazing job. So I wanted to find a new one, and one that would specifically do this. And it was very difficult.
That's a whole series of shows about lawyers.
Yes.
I don't want to touch that one.
Well, I will tell you, I have had 3 lawyers now. So I had the lawyer who basically took me through my sentencing hearing. So basically, when I got in trouble, I hired this lawyer. And then when I went up for parole, I got a separate lawyer who did, have to say, an amazing job. And he did. Him and his dad did an amazing job, and they got me out on my first parole, which never happens. And you know what? I need to give them a shout out, and I'm actually going to look at my phone right now. And I don't know. I'm looking on my phone to see if I can find this lawyer because I can remember his name, his first name, but I can't remember.
Lawyer that rescued you from prison and did a fantastic job and all that, and you can't remember his name.
Yeah, the problem is because I've had so many lawyers.
If I didn't feel like you were in such a fragile state today, I would certainly pounce upon that.
Thank you. Yeah, so it's Topek. It was Topek and Topek Law Firm, and Seth was heading the case, but both him and his dad, and his dad is unfortunately no longer with us, but they did an amazing job. So I'm like, I got to give them a big shout out. And then I got another lawyer because they're basically he's doing, they were in a different jurisdiction from where I was locked up at. So I needed to find a new lawyer up in Collin County. And I basically had to go through this lawyer referral service in Texas. And they started referring me to family lawyers in case I needed like a divorce or something in Texas, which was fortunately not the case. But they were just referring me to random lawyers.
I'm not going for it.
In case you couldn't hear, because unfortunately we were doing this over the phone, so in case you couldn't hear, Malone told me I better not be getting a divorce in Texas. He has questions.
Yeah.
So basically I went through, and then I found this other lawyer who I talked to, and I told him my situation, that I was trying to get this probation, this part of my probation changed. He said he could do it. We could try and get it removed. And I had to pay him $2,000, and there we go. And then I'd have to fly out to Texas and go in front of the judge, the exact same judge that came up with the brilliant idea. Because this is not like a standard stipulation. It's not like jail time or prison time or probation, which are like standard conditions of certain like certain arrests are 2 to 20 years, or some are 5 to 99. Or, their different charges get different default things. This is something the judge came up with on the fly at my sentencing hearing that he added.
That's one of the things I wanted. That's one of the things I wanted to get into. Is you mentioned probation.
Correct.
So I wanted to ask you. So you're actually on probation and parole at the same time.
Correct. Because I had to.
You already went to prison. You
Yes.
did your time on those crimes.
Yes.
And you had to get out, and you're going to be on parole, which is a form of supervision.
Yes.
And then on top of that, they also gave you probation, which is kind of redundant, a redundant type of thing, with a whole bunch of ridiculous little picadillos inside of it, little hoops for you to jump through to appease that as well.
Right.
I mean, is that common? Is that something that's a normal way of sentencing? What is usually the purpose of probation? Isn't probation something to avoid prison?
Right. That is exactly what it normally is. Normally, you get probation instead of prison, and you're under high supervision, so that you better report to this person on a regular basis so that you don't go to prison. And it's added supervision to keep eyes on you, because you've clearly done something that's gotten you in almost enough trouble to go to prison, but not quite enough, basically. And yes,
this is like a real misuse of the concept of probation.
Right. In fact, there's in Texas, there's a common thing that they do, which is called shock probation, which is if they really want to put the fear of the Almighty in you, what they will do is they'll sentence you to prison. They will get you like on the bus ready to go, and then they will release you, and then tell you that you have probation instead, so that this is supposed to shock you. Yeah, it's supposed to scare the hell out of you, and that's what shock probation is. And that's what probation is for. It's instead of going to prison. It's not, you don't have probation and prison and jail time and this. Like, it's not, you don't combine, you don't mix and match. But this judge decided it would be an awesome idea. And then on top of that, he added the jail time too, because why not? Well, actually, the reason was according to...
Why not?
Yeah. The reason, according to the judge, was so that I would remember the man that I killed. And for those of you who don't know, who are just tuning in, the reason I went to prison is because I got drunk one night. I blacked out. I got into my car, all of which I don't remember, but I did. I'm once again taking full responsibility for that. I got into my car and then I drove into another car and then killed the driver. And so all of this in this blackout, I killed this guy, and I also, and then this is an important part to remember too. I was found a mile away from the scene on barefoot in my pajamas. And meanwhile, my car was burning, was on fire, and everything had burnt up. It was awful. It was a mess. It was that night entirely was bad. So I got charged with. If you look at the charge, I got charged with intoxicated manslaughter twice, even though I only killed one person. The second charge has to do with the fact that I left the scene. And that's why I got, so basically for killing the person, I went to prison. For not being at the scene, I got the probation. And both of them were 10 years. And not only did I get, the 10 years didn't start at the same time. It was once I got out of prison, that's when the 10 years started for the probation. So I'll finish my parole in 4 years because I did 6 years in prison. So I finished my parole in 4 years. Now 2 years left on that. And then I have 10 years of probation, 8 years left on the probation. So
was your probation also active? Was that something that you were on while you were in prison? I mean, how does that work?
No.
Suspended the probation until you got out of prison?
It was deferred until I got out.
Deferred.
Like it didn't start until I got out. The day I got out, that's when probation started.
Can you explain that?
I was like, that's kind of what I just said is basically it's stacked basically. So they can do that with other charges too. So like, let's say in my situation, I killed 2 people, and what they could do is I could have gotten 2 10-year sentences or 2 20-year sentences. And then once I finish one 10-year sentence, then I would start the next 10-year sentence. And that's what they did with this, except for instead of having 2 prison sentences, I had a prison sentence and a probation sentence. And they stacked them on top of each other.
All right. I'm still trying to wrap my head around this. I mean, I got to say that I was in prison for 7,000 years, like I said, and so I'm talking to quite a few people about their sentencing, about what they had, and that is a very unusual sentence indeed, that you'd be given probation to go along with your prison sentence. I mean, that's like as we described already. I mean, it's pretty common knowledge that probation is something that you get in lieu of prison, not added on to prison.
And as you said,
and it was deferred until you got out of prison, which is extra craziness added on to that.
Right. And I like, as you were saying, you never came across anyone except for me who had this charge. I was in the same boat. I never came across anyone except for me. And I did come across many people who had the same charge, who had intoxicated manslaughter and who had fled the scene. And many of those people, there were a couple who got like 20-year sentences. All right. And they just got 20 years in prison, and that was the end of it, which means that they can't leave until 10 years is up. And
there's a couple that actually, I mean, there's another case, and I think Texas Monthly has gotten onto it. And there's somebody who was over there with us, as a matter of fact. His name was Gary Gibbs. I think you missed him, but Gary Gibbs got a life sentence, and there was not even a accident involved or anything like that. It was a simple, driving while intoxicated. I don't know, can't remember exactly how the life sentence came about, but some people got involved to, I mean, he really it was an onerous case of excessive sentencing.
And
So, I
this is,
mean,
yeah, that's an important thing to point out too when we're talking about this is, and I forgot it
really,
going. Oh yeah, go ahead.
I was just going to say that, I mean, it kind of illustrates the the the, uh, the power that these judges have and all that. That they're, I mean, that the capabilities that they have to just come up with whatever they want and impose it upon you. And so, it's one guy gets off with probation and doesn't ever have to do any prison time at all. The next guy ends up in prison and probation stacked on top of it. The next guy will never get out of prison, or at least will have to do 30 years flat before he can get out of prison. All for the exact same thing.
Right. And I want to, like, this is something I forgot when I went back to Texas, is this mentality in Texas, especially amongst judges, which is, and I've talked about it a bunch on the podcast, but I really forgot how it works down there, which is if you did something wrong, you've earned this thing. You're earned whatever's getting thrown at you. And even if you're in a courtroom, you've earned it. You are a bad person, and you're lucky that you weren't the victim in this situation, I guess. So we're allowed to do to you whatever we please. And like there are these things called drug courts that have become very popular, and they make the news a lot because it's exactly what you're talking about, Malone, where the idea of the drug court, the idea behind the drug court was a really interesting idea. It was actually a restorative justice idea, which is let's not just sentence these kids to juvenile hall and to prison. Let's find something else. Let's find other ways for them to be punished or to be sentenced. And if it was a restorative justice way, it'd be like, how can we make amends to the victim? How can we talk this out? How can you share your story? How can you prevent this from happening to someone else? Instead, what it turned into was how creatively awful can we be? And those are the headlines. Like you'll hear these headlines from judges. Like one very popular one is like they'll sentence people to stand out on the highway, usually like wearing sandwich boards or holding up giant signs saying like, I'm an awful person who did this awful thing. Then they'll specify. Like if it was my situation, they'd be like, hi, I'm Ryan and I killed someone and this is my address, and like they'll do something spectacularly great, sentence them to do something spectacularly crazy. And like maybe go out every weekend and stand out on that highway or different highways and post themselves like that. And
what you're saying is you got off light. Is that?
Well, I'm saying no. What I'm saying is that
things considered.
Well, they
could have done whatever they wanted to do.
Well, what I'm saying is that this so writer like local media picks it up and they're like, isn't this crazy that this judge did it? But a lot of times what comes out of it, the population's response to it is, yeah, I'm glad that judge so-and-so did that. I really like that judge now. He's really taken a bite out of crime. And this goes back to incentives is the main point I wanted to get back into, which is
the funny thing, one of the really odd things that one of the truths that you're saying, but that seems to be you'll even hear guys that are locked up in prison say stuff like that. Almost like they completely disassociate themselves
right
with being subject to the exact same thing.
Right. Guys in prison. Yeah, guys in prison are the worst about it, quite honestly. They sometimes can be the number one, let's lock him up. That guy deserves this. He deserved what's coming to him. and they don't consider them that guy, even though they're sitting in a cell right now and sitting in a cell watching Law and Order.
It is crazy. It really is. But I mean, you and I have both seen it. It defies all reason and logic.
It does. So Malone, you've got two more questions.
What I'm trying to say, I have two more questions.
Yes.
We got a time limit on this?
We do have a time. I've been trying to set it for, do the 25-minute episodes.
Well, you could edit it down to 25 minutes from.
Oh my gosh. I could do a lot of things.
Oh, you can't. Okay, well, sorry. I don't know the ins and outs of podcasting, apparently. You kind of threw me off with that statement there.
Sorry.
Of course, you kicked me off. You kicked me off my game. I was in the zone there, and now
I'm sorry. That was my bad. It's my bad, everyone. I knew Malone was.
The point that I was trying to make, though, with that last question about, or last statement about, inmates, is that it illustrates something about human nature, that a very bad side of human nature that sees its fellow man around him as being, worthy of the worst possible punishment, possible, but themselves, I'm a good person, I don't deserve that type of thing, right? Instead of the opposite, or I shouldn't say the opposite, but instead of seeing everybody as a good person that deserves, to be, some kind of a help instead of harm whenever they do something wrong. And I got to say, even in my, I can remember growing up and being, when I was young and in prison, I oftentimes had that kind of attitude. I had a difficult time with seeing everyone else around me as being as worthy of mercy as myself. And but I'm not really sure, what I do know what enlightened me, because I was raised in Texas with this attitude, that if my mom, if somebody else if I did something wrong at school or whatever, and a principal whipped me for it, gave me licks or whatever. I know that's probably, people in Colorado probably are aghast at the sound of that, but corporal punishment was common in Texas when I was growing up, and I could go home. I could plead my case. I could say that I didn't deserve it or whatever else. But my mom, it never mattered. My mom automatically took the side of the other people, and so I grew up with this. I actually believed that they were doing the right thing. That hitting kids and excessive amounts of punishment and all that was good for people, and that if you wanted to really train anybody in anything, you should punish failure to the max. If you want to learn how to juggle, okay, I'll show you how to juggle. Every time that you drop a ball, I'll strike you, or you'll get some kind of pain response, and eventually you won't drop that ball anymore, type of thing. And I actually thought like that, and then someone pointed out to me just how insane that sounded. They were aghast whenever I expressed that, and it caused me to take a second look at it, and then I realized, that is pretty crazy. Where'd that come from? And I had to kind of assess myself. But this is getting to a lot of what I think this podcast is about, and what we're trying to change.
It is. This is the big part of, this is the meat of the podcast, and I think if Malone has time, maybe we can split this up into two parts, because I think we can do that. But the main point is that we get this mentality that we need to punish, and if the punishment doesn't work, then we just didn't punish hard enough. And that if someone does something, then if someone is responsible for something, then that means that they're a bad person, or they're a bad or an evil person. And the only way to deal with that is to make them feel bad and evil. But if you make someone feel bad and evil, and this is the big thing that I had to deal with going into that courtroom, I know I'm not a bad or an evil person. I know that I also know that I killed someone. I also know that I've hurt a lot of people because I killed someone. And I am responsible for that. I am. Like, you've got it on camera right now, folks. I am responsible for that. But I also don't think I am bad or evil. But I do know that there are things I can do because of that. I have responsibilities because of that. And that is, I feel like, is a more important thing. Is like, okay, you did this thing. Now you have responsibilities that you have to live up to because you made this choice. What are you going to do now? And what do you need to do to get you so that you can live up to those responsibilities? Instead, we throw people into a box, pull them out of society, and they're useless to everyone. It's a drain. It's a drain on everyone, and it's awful.
And people are very happy with that. They're very satisfied with that situation.
They are, because they don't think about it.
They don't want people to be redeemed or be able to or have the opportunity of redemption or so anything like that.
Well, we're going to wrap this one up right now, and then I'm going to see if Malone can hang on the line and we can do another quick one and do part 2 of this, because we really didn't even finish up the point we were going for today, but we got to another really good one. Thanks everyone for tuning in. Thank you, Malone, for spending some time, and we will catch you next time. The Shakedown was produced at Longmont Public Media, and our theme song Shakedown was brought to you by Envato Elements. If you want any Shakedown merchandise, or if you want to support the show, you can go to waywordpress.com. That's WAYWORD press.com.